August 4th, 2026, Washington, D.C. Two congressional chairmen sign a stack of letters, and at first glance it looks like routine oversight. It is not routine, not because a Chinese model hacked a power grid, not because a court found a crime, not because a single smoking gun sits in a public file, but because free Chinese AI got too good, too fast, and the people whose job is to plan for worst cases started planning for one. Here is the scale of what they are staring at. By May of 2026, open-weight models built in China were serving roughly 61% of all tokens consumed on OpenRouter, one of the biggest marketplaces for AI models in the world. That is not a metaphor. That is just the math. For every 10 units of machine intelligence routed through that market, about 6 were born in China. And it is happening right now, today, in 2026. If you want to understand what actually frightens Washington, and what it refuses to say out loud, hit the like button and stick around. It genuinely helps this channel, and this story deserves more than a headline. Because here is the part nobody is saying on cable news. The investigation that expanded on August 4th names the companies: DeepSeek, Alibaba, Moonshot AI, MiniMax. It warns about intellectual property, censorship, data collection, critical infrastructure, and every single one of those warnings is real enough to take seriously. But taken together, they reveal something else. You do not investigate a joke. You do not subpoena a side project. Empires investigate what they fear. And the number that should terrify American AI companies is not even in the letters. We will get to it. Let's get into it. Every empire has a favorite wall. For the United States, the wall was silicon. The logic was clean, bipartisan, and brutally simple. Advanced AI runs on advanced chips. Advanced chips are made by a handful of companies in America, Taiwan and the Netherlands, and the tap can be turned off. So the tap was turned off. No leading-edge NVIDIA GPUs, no EUV lithography, no advanced tools. Put China in the sandbox, and the sandbox does the rest. And here is the honest part that China's fans often skip. The wall worked. It really worked. Without EUV machines, Chinese foundries had to squeeze 7 and 5 nanometers out of older DUV tools using multi-patterning, a slower, costlier, lower-yield path. Huawei's Ascend 910C, the best AI chip China ships at scale, delivers just under 800 teraflops in FP16, roughly a third of what NVIDIA's top chips push. On raw silicon, the sandbox was real. So Washington did what any rational superpower does. It doubled down on the measurable war. American tech companies are on track to spend close to $700 billion on data centers in 2026 alone. Global chip sales jumped 123.6% year-over-year in June. Amazon alone is writing checks around $200 billion. The assumption underneath all of it was one sentence: intelligence is a hardware business, and we own the hardware. But here is what the sandbox assumption never priced in. You can embargo a chip. You cannot embargo a habit. While Washington counted teraflops, developers in Lagos, Bangalore, Jakarta, and Berlin were making a much simpler calculation every single morning. Which model do I build on? The American one that charges per token, with a license written by lawyers, or the Chinese one I download once, run forever, and modify however I want? That question, asked millions of times a day, was the real war. And the sandbox had no answer to it. This felt like a problem with no real solution for the American side until the letters arrived. Because panic, it turns out, is also a metric. So why did nobody in America fix this sooner? Because for 3 years, the industry looked at Chinese open models and smiled. There was even a dismissive energy to it, a nickname waiting to happen. Poor man's frontier. Distilled copies. Good enough models for people who cannot afford the real thing. And to be fair, the dismissal had receipts. Many Chinese open models were trained, at least in part, by distillation, a technique where a smaller student model learns by imitating the outputs of a bigger teacher. And the best teachers were American. Critics pointed at censorship baked into alignment. They pointed at weaker performance on the hardest reasoning benchmarks. They pointed at security questions nobody could fully answer. Every one of those weaknesses was concrete, specific, and true. So the American AI industry made a rational business decision. Ignore it. Open weights looked like economic suicide. Why give away a billion-dollar model for free when you can rent it by the token? Closed models were the oil business. You do not sell the well, You sell the barrel. Wall Street agreed. Valuations agreed. The entire incentive structure of Silicon Valley said one thing: free is not a business model. But here is the question nobody asked in those boardrooms. What if free is not the business model? What if free is the bait? Because there is an older story here. Give away the thing that becomes the standard, and own the thing that grows around it. China did not need to win the benchmark crown forever. It needed developers to wake up one day and realize their startup, their university lab, their government agency was already running on Chinese weights, and that switching costs were now technical, financial, and political. That is not a product strategy. That is a gravity strategy. And gravity, unlike benchmarks, does not need to be the best. It just needs to be everywhere. Here is the mechanism, step by step in plain physics. No magic. Step 1. Borrow the teacher's brain, cheaply. Distillation is exactly what it sounds like. You run a frontier American model on trillions of carefully chosen prompts, collect its answers, and train your cheaper model on those answers instead of on raw human data. The student never sees the teacher's architecture. It just absorbs the behavior. Congress now alleges large-scale distillation campaigns were used to replicate the capabilities of leading U.S. systems. Whether you call that theft or competition, the economics are identical. You skipped the most expensive part of training. Step 2. Price the product at zero and make the license permissive. Download once, run forever, fine-tune freely, host it on your own servers for privacy. For a developer in a market where every dollar counts, that is not a discount. That is a different universe. American models charge per use. Chinese open models charge per nothing. Step 3. Let 1 million developers build the habit. By May 2026, Chinese open-weight models held around 61% of token consumption on OpenRouter. Habits are infrastructure. Once your codebase, your prompts, your fine-tunes are built around a model family, switching is surgery. Step 4. And this is the step that changes everything. The agentic explosion. The new Chinese flagships are not chatbots. They are workers. Alibaba's Qwen 3.8 Max, released August 3rd, is pitched as a model that can work autonomously for more than 10 days on a single task. Agents do not send one message. They run thousands of steps, burning tokens like a jet burns fuel. In an agent economy, per-token pricing stops being a business model and starts being a tax. Step 5. Monetize the gravity, not the tokens. Moonshot AI, maker of the 2.8 trillion parameter Kimi K3, paused new subscriptions within 48 hours of launch because demand hit the ceiling of its compute, and then went out raising up to $2 billion at a $30 billion valuation. Alibaba lifted full-year capex to 126.1 billion yuan, about $17.5 billion. The model is free. The ecosystem is not. That is the mechanism. The United States built a toll road. China poured free asphalt everywhere else, and now sells the cars, the garages, and the insurance. But talk is cheap. Deployments are not. So let's walk the calendar of one single week, the first week of August 2026, because the pattern matters more than any headline. August 3rd, Alibaba officially releases Qwen 3.8 Max, 2.4 trillion parameters, a 1 million token context window, and a bold claim that it outperforms GPT 5.6 Sol Max and Fable 5 on agentic computer use. Open weights announced to follow within a week. On the same days, Bloomberg runs a headline that reads like an obituary for American model makers. China's AI blitz, it says, is creating a death zone for rival U.S. firms. August 4th, House Homeland Security Chairman Andrew Garbarino and Select Committee on China Chairman John Moulinar expand the congressional investigation into Chinese open-weight models, DeepSeek, Alibaba, Moonshot, MiniMax, and send a new letter to DoorDash, after earlier letters to Anysphere and Airbnb in April. Read that again. The U.S. legislature is interviewing a food delivery company about which AI it uses. That is not oversight of a niche technology. That is mapping a dependency. August 6th. Reports surfaced that developers across Africa are increasingly choosing free Chinese models over American ones, for the simplest reasons in economics: cost, control, access. Free and good enough beats expensive and excellent when the budget is real. August 7th. Washington tightens the hardware grip again. New rules closing the offshore loophole for NVIDIA chip flows to China. A Senate move demanding answers on export control enforcement. and fresh tariffs aimed at Chinese solar and chips. Now step back and look at the shape of it. Every American move in that week is about restriction. Letters, probes, loopholes, tariffs. Every Chinese move in the same week is about distribution. Weights, APIs, open releases, new markets. One side is playing defense with lawyers. The other is playing offense with product. That asymmetry is the proof. You do not sanction what you are beating. You sanction what is beating you. But here is the honest part of this story, and it matters, so slow down for a second. None of this means China has won. Some of it means the opposite. First, the benchmark problem. As of August 3rd, no independent evaluations of Qwen 3.8 Max existed. The boldest claims are, for now, the vendor's claims. Second, the compute problem is brutal and visible. Kimi K3 paused subscriptions because Moonshot simply does not have enough chips to serve the demand. Export controls still strangled Chinese training runs. And Huawei's roadmap, while ambitious, is still chasing NVIDIA's rear lights. Third, the distillation dependency is a leash. If the next generation of Chinese models is built by imitating today's American teachers, then cutting off the teachers cuts off the students' grandchildren. And fourth, the security concerns in those congressional letters are not imaginary. Open weights can be stripped of guardrails. In one August report, hackers turned an open Chinese model into an automated weapon that attacked hundreds of systems. Censorship-aligned behavior in Chinese models is documented, not conspiracy. So no, this is not a story where China is invincible. It is a story where China chose a strategy the United States structurally cannot copy, giving the product away. And the United States is discovering that its own business model is also its blind spot. None of this erases what the science has already proven. It simply marks the distance between winning the benchmarks and winning the world, which brings us back to the bigger picture this whole story has been building toward. Every technological empire makes one bet about what the scarce thing will be. America bet the scarce thing is compute. The chips, the fabs, the data centers, the $700 billion of concrete and copper. China bet the scarce thing is habit. Which model a developer in Nairobi reaches for before breakfast, which weights a startup in Sao Paulo fine-tunes, which AI a ministry in Jakarta deploys because it was free on the day the budget was signed. The United States is trying to own the refinery. China is trying to own the appetite. And the terrifying possibility for Washington is not that Chinese models are better. It is that they are good enough, and free, and everywhere. And that in a world where intelligence flows like water, the side that priced it at zero gets to decide where the rivers run. The world that ran on expensive intelligence didn't announce its own ending either. It just started losing ground to something faster, cheaper, and impossible to sanction. So here is the question, and I genuinely do not know the answer. When machine intelligence becomes free, what exactly is left to sell? And who gets to write the rules for a product nobody can price? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want to see where this river goes next, subscribe, because the next bend is already coming. Thanks for watching.